Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome Monica Park. I am so glad to have you here.
I'm so happy to be with you, Jenny. Thank you for asking me.
It's an honor. Monica and I had a fantastic conversation about her journey, which I'm so excited for her to unfold and unpack for us today. It's very different than other maps and other journeys, and that's what makes it so special. And I'm really excited to dive in with you.
I am too. Let's get to it. Thank you.
So let's start where we always start with season two, your middle, where when you were in that moment where the muck was up to your waist and you were like in the quicksand and you were there and you're like, oh, this isn't working.
Yeah.
When was that moment?
I wouldn't have remembered if it wasn't for you. I marked it now in my mind. It was March of 20, and it felt just like what you said. I felt this. It sounds very dramatic, but this is really how it was. Is everything in my body was like, stop doing this. Don't do this again. I had taken a job that was good money, good thing. I could do it in my sleep. It was going to be fine, but it was just going to be not the right thing. It was going to take me off again or keep me on the path I was on, which was not right for me. And I knew it on a very deep level. But finally, I don't know if it's just culmination too many times, but I did feel that physically for the first time, just like, stop doing this, stop going forward and pushing something forward, you know.
So yours, it sounds like it was just this realization that you were using all the muscle in your body to
Yeah.
push something that didn't feel right.
Yes. Yes. And exactly. And I want to say to anybody listening, I have to say this context because it was also the first time that I had asked for help. I never asked for help. I was always, it's financial survival, which we all have to do when it comes to work. But I'd also chosen a complicated relationship that was cross countries and cultures, and I had to really engage. And the job part was so critical to me kind of having the life I wanted, the partner I wanted. And nobody really understood that. Turns out it wasn't a great fit in general. We're not together anymore. But all this energy was in that one container, and work became survival of not only money and livelihood, but this reality and this relationship I wanted. And I just did it on my own, and this was the first time I had help around me. I moved back home. I lived abroad for 20 years, away for 20 years. I had support. I had a community. I had my family again. I had access to financial resources that generously my family is able to do, but I hadn't taken a dime in decades, and it's just this pride of like, nope, I'm doing it myself. It's my life. And I think that's admirable in some ways, but it can get really toxic. And that was my experience. And I finally asked for help. I said, I don't think this is working. I need some help. And that was really hard for me to say. It was my pride, and that I had viable help for the first time. So I had an alternative to not grind it out. So that's really important to say, I think. Don't you think?
It is so important. And we're probably going to spend most of our time diving into the asking for help part because it's one of the biggest steps that people don't like realize, like all
Yes.
the stuff and the stories that we've got wrapped up in asking for help. But
Yes.
before we talk about the stories, I want to talk about the boulder you were pushing uphill. What boulder were you pushing uphill?
I I'll start from the positive. Like, I knew since I was in my young 20s, I was a good student, followed all the rules, had a path. But once I got into my own life as an adult, kind of 25, I had to hustle and push like I alluded to, I was choosing a life that was mine, and it was pathless, and I had to kind of just grind it out. And I learned that I had the resiliency, the strength to do that. But it also got me in trouble because I would just go and I would just push. And I didn't know how to read signals of like, is it it wasn't about fit. I'm like, I need to get this job and I need to do it and I need to get it and I need to push and then I need to execute, then I need to make as much money. I was just so singularly focused like that. Talking about it, I can't even recognize that person, but I remember what it was like. It was just survival, and it was using all my energy. I'll keep using that energy. And I don't mean it in the woo-woo soft way. I mean, like, all my
Mhm.
effort, focus, energy. That's their work. You're putting it
Mhm.
out there. And I just put it all in very aggressively into work, just like not evaluating, just going. I'd find a target and I'd go. And I was working in industry that I was like, yeah, I had experience in, and I just I had some experience, so I had to make it work. So I was hustling, cobbling together I wouldn't even call it a career. I was just getting jobs. I was trying to earn money and live in a different country. And I just didn't have, I felt it was a luxury to have to be strategic or have choice, or what I asked myself what I wanted. I was like, there's no way. I just have to do what I have to do. And the boulder I was pushing up was just trying to make like things fit and fit on my timeline and my thing. And it's just, it's just, when you don't know that you can't dance with that a little bit, it is a grind, and you just work yourself to the bone. And that's what I did.
So it sounds like you were in the situation many of us have found ourselves in, which is working on the next thing in your list instead of the best
Always.
thing in your life.
Oh, well said. Well said. Yes. Yes.
So you were doing that. You said it was a grind, but you didn't realize it was a grind. Some part of you is disconnected from the fact it was a grind.
Yeah. Well, and I also, to be honest, I got a lot of positive things out of it. I made money. I got promoted fast. I had to live my life in a way that other people weren't. I mean, I lived in a rented apartment with rented furniture because I was always taking on these innovative business ideas that may or not go anywhere. Because I just thought, well, I have to take the opportunity. I didn't have a typical profile, I just had to get in there and kind of wow people with my ability to just make terrible situations work or change situations work. I mean, if there was a bad business and a bad team, I put my hand up first in the company. I mean, everyone's like, you're crazy, but that's how I got opportunities. And that's how I was able to move quickly, make more money, probably faster than I would have if I just never felt any sense of safety or that I could rest on just kind of coasting. I just never knew what that was. It was always, I had to be ahead of things. I don't think I was completely delusional either. I think that was my reality, but yeah, I got a lot of positive from it though. I got a lot of self-esteem from it at first. I became a little hardened, and I thought like, you just got to do it. And you get this kind of bravado from it. And I definitely did. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Me too. It's the voices that we layer on our experiences. It starts with external, but then over time it shapes us, and we put an internal talk track over that, and it quiets all of the little voices in our head. So what voice was that bravado quieting?
Was it quieting?
Yeah, because that bravado is building something on top of something that we're trying to mask, or that we haven't found peace with. So what was the internal voice that this external voice was?
Great question. It's a great question. I grew up in privilege, and I had a great world-class education. And again, like I said, the path was kind of set for me to do well in school, get good grades. I lived in the same house since I was in second grade. I went to the same all-girls school from kindergarten to 12th grade. Like my life was really settled, and all I had to do was study and get good grades, and I think when I came out of it, and also I'll allude to who I was with, I think there was this question of like, are you spoiled? Like, can you take care of yourself? Like, do you have what it takes? Kind of. Also, yeah, I'm competitive with myself too. And I wanted to know, I also knew I wanted to live a different kind of life. That was really clear when I hit adulthood, my young adulthood. And I was scared shitless, sorry to swear, but I was scared. I was really scared. I'm like, I don't know if I have what it takes. And I was living in Hong Kong, international city. I'm from Minnesota. And I was just, I'd lived in New York before, and I always was drawn to these like chaotic big cities, kind of like big time things. And I just wanted to see if I had what it takes to make it. And I think that was always the competitive part of me, and also the proving to myself, to my partner, and kind of like to my family community. They weren't ever hard on me, but I was choosing something else, and I had to make it work. A lot of my pride fueled this. It also was my downfall later, maybe why I stayed too long in some things, but it was like, I had to prove, I wanted to prove people that I could do it my way.
So you were saying that you were always trying to stay ahead of things.
Yeah.
What were you trying to stay ahead of?
The shoe dropping, like things just, I worked in business. If the business was going poorly, we're going to have we changed business models a lot. There was a lot of interesting, but not a lot of security in the company I worked for. I worked for a big private label company in Hong Kong, but I was on the side of the business that was innovative, trying new things. And my boss, my Swedish boss, was a true entrepreneur with this side of the business. He was just try things. No, and it famously would cut things quickly. It was just a lot of chaos, a lot of opportunity is how I took it. And I gained a lot of exposure and experience. So I kind of loved it. But the cost of that was a lot of security. And I just knew that it was fine. And when I made money, I banked it. I wasn't buying a lot of stuff because I needed cash to be able to have freedom and to cover me if something happened and the business I was working like didn't go through, and that happened quite a bit, or change teams, change regimes. And if I was part of that cull, which it happens, even if I'm good, like it happens. I just needed to have some safety, security of money to be able to either bridge that gap or give me some time to like reinvent myself. I was always doing that, so I guess it's just, I just had to have a path. So staying ahead of it was just necessary because I didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah.
So money was then the safety net that protected you when you didn't have others. And
Yes.
so how did that then play in when you hit this moment? Because it seems like money kind of came back in its own different way later and paid a visit into your life.
Did. And I'm gonna say, like, even the job I took, it was a good job. It was a 6-figure job. It was money that I should have taken, it was not nothing, but I just couldn't. I couldn't. Looking back, I'm always like, oh, I wish in hindsight I just would have taken it for a while, but you never, at the moment, it felt really do or die. It felt like a break I was making personally to a way of being when it came to work. I also have to say, like, this way of being in work made me feel really insecure. I felt really insecure. I always felt really like I'm not going to measure up. And since I made that decision to be like, no, even when it's a great, great money, something I could have done, it actually kind of makes sense that I would have done it anyway. But the fact that I chose myself, my sanity, my peace, asking for help, I think that was the important decision because everything changed after that. I'm not, I can't even like talk. I mean, this is what we're talking about, Jenny, but like everything changed, everything. When I was just like, no, I'm not, this is not my level anymore. And it wasn't about the money because the money was good. And if I was just my old self thinking about money, like, of course I would have taken that and done it, but it was not about that. And I think that was the first time it wasn't about money. It wasn't about survival. I was choosing myself. I was going to bet on myself and say, like, we have nothing lined up. We never do that, but I'm going to bet on myself and I'm going to bet that I can figure it out. So it goes back to that young person saying, like, do I have what it takes? And I'm like, this was the next level of that. Like, do I have what it takes when there's no other plan? When it actually looks like not a very practical decision, when I'm asking for help, when I had pride about that, when people look down on that too, we could talk about that too. But I was like, I don't care. I am choosing myself. I am in my 40s now. Like, this is the only time. I'm like, when am I going to learn this? Like, I know now, and it's not the same situation. And I just chose not this. And it leveled up everything for me. And my confidence went through the roof because I had to just stand on my own with nothing else. I had no other plan. I had no like succinct things to say to people socially or like my family when they were like, what's your plan? I'm like, I don't have one. I'm not doing anything right now. And that gave me incredible confidence about my life and also making work not the only thing that I was talking about when I talked about my life. And I was just like, I don't know. And that work quadrant is empty right now. Like, I have no idea. And it needed to be. It needed to be.
And so you said that you didn't have a plan. What was that like to not have a plan and not know when you're going to have a plan and not know how to get to a plan and not like to sit in that space of ambiguity for someone who had been striving for so long to get to the next thing or the next goal? That contrast, what was that like? Did you find yourself trying to run every once in a while and having to back up and say, slow down, girl?
100%. 100%. I mean, this more than anybody. I had to reprogram. I could feel it as a default. And it was almost like, it was hard. It's like holding back a horse. I was like, my energy is so revving up, always. And I would be freaking out. Like, it wasn't easy. It's not easy to make those choices, even when you're going to eat and you're not putting anybody out. Like, I was going to survive. I wasn't going to be on the street. And that's a big deal. But psychologically, I was also going to reprogram this, reprogram it, which means you got to break it down. So it's not just holding yourself back when you have the instinct. You have to be like, why am I doing this? And I did the work on that, like, I have therapists. It's not like I just sat and did this, I gave myself the time, but I'm like, I need to know why I do these things, what I'm getting out of it, positively or negatively, and like what I want to go towards and why, because that's the reprogramming of like my brain and where it comes from, and it's a lot of work. I needed the space to do that. I was lucky to have a lot of time to just look at this. And I know not everybody gets that, but if you do not feel guilty about it. Just like kick the shit out of that time of like doing nothing, of just like laying around and being like, do not feel guilty. Do not preface it to people. I didn't. I was also like, I was so at the end of my rope. I'm like, there's nothing else to do. I have to stop. I have to stop. So my doing a good job became doing this, which is the not doing. And it was a complete reframing of cadence, of like anxiety, of motivation, of what I think of status, how I interact with people, how I talk, everything. And it wasn't that conscious. Like I didn't drive myself crazy, but it's like I had to have time to do that. And it happened, but wow, it takes a lot. And it takes a lot of like, I pulled back. I wasn't that social. I was just with my core people, my good friends, my family, and my life became very, very simple. It's actually a beautiful time. I remember it, but I didn't do much. And I did not feel bad about it. I did not give a shit, like about that. Cause I'm like, this is what I'm doing. Like, this
Yep.
is badass to do it. It
I
didn't feel
love that. The not doing is the doing. That's amazing. One of the things that I will frequently tell people is that life is about the nothings that string together the somethings. And if you can't
right.
find that satisfaction in the nothings that connect those dots, it's
Yes.
really hard to really truly enjoy the
Yes.
somethings.
Yes. And to really know what you want, what you need, what are musts. How can you
Yeah.
answer that if you're not quiet with yourself? And I actually see it now. I'm still a judgmental person. I'm working on it, but it's like I see high powered
Raise your
people.
hand if you're a
I
fellow
know, right?
judgmental
I know.
person. Me too, over here.
Yeah, I'm trying. But I won't totally throw that out. I like my judgment because I'm trying to have real clarity for myself. And I'm trying, I judge in relation to me and what I'm going to do. And I think people are stronger when they're able to do nothing or when they're still. It's not this, I'm not impressed with all this movement all the time. I think the people that I admire, they're very still in their bodies. They're calm, they're productive, they do stuff. They're not hanging around doing nothing. And they're very motivated, but their energy is so grounded, strong. It's actually what I always wanted, why I was trying to work and get accomplishments, these external things. But if you're running around like a crazy person, it doesn't matter what your CV is like, because you look like a crazy person. And that's how I was. I'm like, there was nothing solid or like impressive about how I was running around working till 11, have nothing. I was like, I look insane. And I'm looking at people now, I'm like, just the ability to just slow down and hold their energy. I was like, I didn't know how to do that. And that's a process of your physical body regulating and not going to anxiety and drama to fuel and get you to go and do something. Like I was on that drip. Like I'm totally motivated by building and creating and making and going. And it's still scary because you have to do it, but it's so much more like you have a lot of more resources. Like you can pull people into that and help you and collaborate because your energy is so welcoming and it feels strong for people. Like if you're just like a frazzled mess, like no one wants to throw anything your way because they're like, she's overloaded. She can't really handle anything. And so now it's such a, and then in my new work, and I'll even say my new relationship, because the relationship part is really parallel to my work life. It's like, I have a partner now. It's like we create together. He's so grounded and strong. I've never been with somebody so strong and smart before. And our energy is just it's like we're totally towards building and creating and understanding where some defaults are coming in and when they don't work. And it's the same thing I'm doing in my work life. Like it's just all intentional. It's very deliberate, thoughtful. Maybe it's slower. It takes more time. I'm not on that like linear, like grind. And sometimes that bothers me. I do feel like, am I like lazy? But the outcomes are so much better, because I take the time or I think about something or I wait,
You get your best results when you stop outworking your problems. Yeah.
God, you have all of them, Jenny. Exactly. Exactly.
What was coming to mind when you were talking in this grounded was like a tree with these roots. And it's about kind of getting those roots into the ground
Yes.
so that they're really fueling and feeding you. That doesn't mean that you're not growing amazing fruit or leaves and creating shelter and shade for other people, but it's just that
Exactly.
you really are absorbing
Yes.
that versus trying to massively generate it.
I love this segue because it actually is true. Like the nature metaphor. I don't have any kids. It was just me. And like, so I took a lot of liberties and I spent a lot of time like just off, traveling. And I lived in Hawaii for a couple months in the same location. And I just remember thinking nature is always moving forward. It's not fast, but it's always moving forward. I saw like the palm fronds like sprout, grow, fall, the bees come and the flowers bloom. It happened to be when I was there. So I could see all this nature like happening. And I was like, I'm looking at the same backyard. It doesn't look like anything's happening. And I could look at it as very boring, right? But I started to look at like this, the sky changes every night. The sunset is different. The trees are growing, the birds are coming in, the flowers are, I'm like, there's just actually a lot of activity and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of powerful forward motion, and
Mm-hmm.
what's more powerful than nature? And I
Mm-hmm.
realized, I'm like, I can't feel the pace of life. Pace of life is not frenetic. It is powerful and it's forward, but it's not like rushing. That feels very human made. Busy to be busy, always distracted, doing more and not really hitting it, but just being like, ah, la, 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 la. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not what alpha and that's not what, I love sharks, like great whites and lions. They're not rushing around. They're
Mm-hmm.
taking their time and they dictate the pace. And nature too is going forward. And it may look boring, but it is very powerful. It's very fertile. It's very alive. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to tap into, because I felt like I was draining a well every day because I wasn't going deep enough into what I'm sucking into and like what's feeding me. And that's bigger things. It's a more community. It's more relation. I had no relationships that were sustaining me. I was a terrible friend. And I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to go into the last half of my life being totally just like this individual, like, thing going after stuff. It's very selfish. I felt like I wasn't really generating anything, regenerating. I was just like, this is just really shallow and really like, it's like a tapped well. It was just dry all the time. And I was in Hawaii looking at this fertile ecosystem, water, rock, trees. Now I'm getting all off, but you know what I mean? Like I was just looking at this, like, this is so alive. I want to be like this, more natural, more in my natural element. I don't want to be, the boulder I was always pushing up is making myself into whatever anybody needed me to be. And I prided myself on that. But now I'm like, I don't do everything. I do what I do. I do what I do best. And I'm building my whole business around what I can do and what I do best and what people will come to me for. And I'm not insecure about that. There'll be other people to do other things. Competition is interesting to me. It fuels me, but I don't worry about it too much. I just have to do what I do and deliver that with excellence and be really clean with that. So my whole system that got reprogrammed was me just having this internal mechanism to then make the external outcomes reflect my internal world and possibly what other people might be feeling. My work is very deep now. And I was just on this external validation drip. What do they want? What do they need? What do I need? I'll be every tool in the tool belt, whatever they need at any time. And it just made me crazy. Because then the insecurity happens because you don't really own anything that's ownable.
Yeah.
You're just fitting in the system.
So,
Yeah.
so how long did you have to have this space to be able to find this slowness, this change?
It actually happened from March to May of last year, because May is when I kind of came across this new thing that I wanted to do. That's when I realized my relationship was ending and I need to end this actively. So the clarity of decisions came within that period. And it was very clear. So it's not like I needed years and years to sit with that nothingness, but I really nothinged it. I nothinged it. And I think that's important because I didn't like kind of do stuff over here. I was unwinding everything. And that intention, I think, gave me that kind of, I think it's a short period of time to totally find
Yes.
a calling, to totally unravel a long relationship and to start thinking about what you want. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And so many things to get into in that. I'm going to do a bit of a rapid fire here because I want to cover so many things with you. I want to talk about the asking for help and not like you. I love that you honored that not everybody has access to the same resources, but I also know that many of us do not tap into the resources we do have, whatever they look like, because we have these stories we've put on top of asking for help. I certainly did it myself. And I remember the moment I hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
So what did that look like for you? How did you realize you needed to ask for help? How did you do it? And then what did you learn through the process of asking for help?
I realized is this whole thing of just like, I'm drawing from something too shallow. And I knew that connecting into deeper things, I'm a very deep spiritual person, not religious, but I was like, I got to tap into something deeper, a deeper frame. I knew all business frames. I knew all these things, but I needed to go a little deeper for me. And so I found my things that helped me do that,
Mm-hmm.
Second, I realized like relationships are so sustaining, you know, and regenerative, and a source of this great energy back and forth of people knowing who you are, knowing you know, and choosing people who you love and you think are amazing. I was just much more deliberate about that. I wasn't just friends with whoever was around or my coworkers, whatever. I'm like, who do I really love? Who do I adore? Who I think is an incredible person. And then who also adores me and sees me as the special person that I am. And I just became very deliberate in making sure I was spending time with those people, and the people who didn't make me feel that way, I unwound those relationships, or I minimized my exposure to them. And that was again of this like not this kind of moment. I'm like, I'm not going to do this with people. My time and energy are so precious. And I was doing this back in my life, you know, I'm like, I'm not working, and I'm not saying my time is money or whatever. I'm like, it's my life, you know, and where do I want to spend this energy and focus and give myself to? And how do I feel? I would get off the phone with some people. I'm like, I'm really so tired. I'm like, that person is draining the fuck out of me. You know, they're happy,
Mm-hmm.
but I have nothing left, you know? And when I pulled back and didn't do that, I remember this person was like, wow, you seem a little distant. I'm like, are you okay? And I'm like, I feel great. I'm giving all that energy to me. Not to, you know? And it sounds selfish. And like, that was another thing I don't feel guilty about. This time about
No.
this was about like, what do I want? What do I need? And I do think that people think it's selfish. Again, at the time, I didn't think, I'm like, this is just what I'm doing. You know, I think this is a healthy way to be. But I did have to, then the asking for help. Like I asked my father, I said, I asked him like a business deal. I said, can you come over? You know, my Korean father, we're all together all the time. But I'm like, on a Saturday when I had to make this decision about not taking this job that I took, I asked him to come over and I said, I need to talk to you. And he knew it was important. I'm like, I need your help. I can't do this anymore. I feel like a failure, but I need, and I was emotional. I was crying to him. I was like, I feel like a failure. You know, I've worked 20 years and nothing's working out. It's not, but I need to do something else. And I need your help. I need money to help me do that because I can't take this job. I just can't. I know it's not going to lead to something bigger, and I want to do something bigger and better. And he looked at me. He's like, I've been waiting for you to ask me for this. You know, he's seen what I was doing, and he's like, I know you have it in you. I'm not worried about that. We can do it. It's what I worked so hard for, you know? He's like, what do you think I was doing that for? It's to give you this freedom, this cushion. And I want to say about asking out. So I approached it very deliberately. I was very clear about my intention about like, and it wasn't about making a deal about how I was going to pay things back or whatever. He's like, it's not what this is. Go get what you want. Go do what you want. Go make your life. And that's incredible, you know? But I want to tell people what that did, the generosity of that give to made me tell myself, I'm not going to feel guilty about this. I'm not going to feel guilty. I'm not going to be like, because when someone gives you that generosity, you just want to go all the way and be so great and be so happy and be so healed. And I think the guilt can make people hold back, and then they don't dream as big, or they are like, oh, you know, and it's that hemming and hawing that with help, this is a generosity of help also with a desperation, but it was the generous act. And I think when you ask for help, the generosity of people, I have been blown away. And not just this financial thing, but like when my relationship unraveled, I went to my friends. I'm like, I need you to help me because I don't have any strength here. And everybody just gave and gave and gave. And they never made me feel like a burden. Almost people were waiting for me to be like, we love you. Of course we want to help you. And it's easy to help you because we love you. And just the swell of support and just that anxiety just went kind of away, you know, in my head of just always looking over my shoulder, trying to get ahead of it, just like what's going to get me next. It went away because I felt strong with this community who wants nothing but the best for me. And and let me come over to their house and like be on their couch, take care of their kids, like be around normal grounding that, you know, kids are so grounding, and I'm an auntie. So just being around the kids was grounding, helping my parents out. I was not just thinking myself, like I was in community again, making new friends who are incredible, inspiring people, who looking at people who are, you know, doing so well in their careers and love what they do. I just wanted to be around people like that. And you just get so much from it. And I just completely cut that off for myself, you know, and it was just this embarrassment of riches just right around me. And I just said, like, please help me and be around me, you know?
So when you asked for help, We have to be like, we have to be able to. So there's 4 steps of village building. I always say the first is naming, knowing who you would call. You've talked about that. The next one is feeding. So it's caring for your universe and not out of sight, out of mind. The third is what you're talking about, is channeling. How did you channel the support? Because people often want to help but don't know how. So
Yeah,
how did you channel it so that it could be this mutually rewarding community?
that's a really good question. And I'm going to have a practical and an abstract answer. On the practical level, I just spent time. I just spent time and I made sure, even people virtually, I was like, when are they on my calendar? When am I going to see these people? And I just put those people on my calendar and I made sure to show up, to be with them. I also showed up with no agenda. And I was just like, I'm going to be totally present in this. I'm not trying to get anything. That was the other thing of just like giving first and not worrying about getting. Cause I was always worrying about getting. I was always trying to get something that I wanted. And this was just like, just give first. And my friend Faith was instrumental because she was such a giver. I'm like, I just want to be around this person who's so generous because I'm hoping it'll just bleed off on me. And it did also, but it was fun. I learned it's fun and like to give more and just to make yourself available. And this was the softening, which made me stronger, but it was a softening. And I just had to be really present and just have my presence be enough, and I have incredible people around me. I have to say, like, I have an incredible family and friends, and they're just very generous and endlessly loving towards me. But now every success is so much greater because I have all these people in it with me. And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So now that you have all these people, you've created something new with your work life. You found that internal connection. So, how did you stumble into that new line of work, and where did you land?
Yeah. So I'm starting a new business as a end of life planner and estate concierge, and I'm a certified death doula. So I am really
Mhm.
going towards this need, as I've seen, of kind of in a societal level of we don't do death very well here. And I just heard a lot of experiences of people just being blindsided by sudden death, tragic death, or the long deaths of aging parents and just it not being a great experience, or some having incredible experiences. And I was like, that sounds great. I kind of want the good one, and the bad one sounds like it sucks. And there's no system or business kind of flow that makes sense to me. There are, obviously, but it seems just really strange. I
Mhm.
love a business model change. That's kind of like it gets me really excited. Also, when there's an opportunity for like something to be better, it really bothers me when things are kind of shitty. And business is always the tool, I think, that's very powerful. And I like to use it in terms of organization, clarity, making that money move around and people being satisfied with a service and a delivery and helping them get on with their lives. And I just saw I just had a lot of conversation. It was really organic. And I told me about my friend Faith weekly. We were working on a project for her about like end of first mile. It's called taking things from people's houses and giving them a second life. They're things. But I was like, what about, we kept coming up with when people die or they have to downsize or there's like this illness. And it seemed really like a traumatic life event, I'll call it. And
Mhm.
the system of way of like cleaning it up and doing it well, just like it always kind of broke down into this question mark of like, why isn't that better? So I just kept getting tugged by that. Like, this seems like a lot of project management stuff I love and organization, getting rid of stuff. I just love that kind of stuff. It makes me energized. When people get tired, I get energized. And I was like, what? I think there's a service here that people could pay money for. There's no, to get rid of their things, downsize, get ahead of the planning, get ahead of the paperwork. And so these events that happen are not so traumatic. And then I got into, I just, and my mentor, Bob, said something to me. He's like, Monica, we were talking about something. We talk about deep things when we connect once a month. And he's like, death is the one thing we're all going to do. And none of us are planning for it. Like it's the one thing we're
Mhm.
all going to do. And we don't talk about it. We don't plan about it. We don't optimize for it. We don't say what it could be. We don't share. It's just this really weird thing. And that just the truth of that just like stunned me. And I was like, I kind of want to look at this end of life. And it was funny. I use end of life in my circularity business right before, but I'm like, no, this is like end of our lives. So
Mhm.
it's always kind of funny that I segued into that. But and then I was like reading, I heard a podcast of this woman, Alua Arthur, who I ended up doing my training with. She's incredible. She's an incredible advocate and out front of like just this death literacy and education. She's like, I think everybody's going to have a death doula when we go forward, just
Mhm.
like a trainer or a financial planner or something like that. Not all of us have trainers. I wish I did. But just having a death planner or a death end of life planner, like this will be something once you're 18, even not just for older people either. Like anything could happen. And the stakes are high when you have family, kids, like we all need to get our stuff in order. I think it's an opportunity for everybody to kind of look at this and be very mindful of the end, which is going to happen. And it's only made me live better. It's not sad. Everyone's like, oh, I'm like, it's actually made me more engaged. I really have a relationship with time, about urgency now. All that stuff isn't fueled by anxiety. It's just a real knowing of the truth of like, we don't have control over when it ends. We don't know when it's going to happen. We can plan for certain things. We can't plan for everything. But, you know, and in the dying time, I can go off this whole abstract level of being a death doula and sitting with people in the dying time and being able to do that. How do you do that really? And do it for people you don't love, like it, or know intimately, you know, as a business. If I was doing that and sitting with people, helping people navigate that room, you know, there's people who do that. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. And it goes back to all that stuff I was telling you about. You got to be really grounded in your body, because everyone will be floating around and they look for the most grounded person in the room, whether it's the medical professional who's like tracking the body and what it's doing, or the person who's holding the energy in the room and being like, this is happening. This is happening now. It is a profound moment, just like birth. A baby comes into this world, you know, it's like, it's amazing. But then we also go out of this world, and it's also amazing. That's the only two things we all do, you know? So it's an incredible, you got to prep for that though. If it's just happening to you, we're not always like, you know, our day-to-day lives are completely programming it for us to be the opposite way. Just like I was as a workaholic, you're just doing, it's forward motion. It's getting the thing, it's building. This is the unraveling. This is the letting go. This is the doing nothing in the most profound way possible. And what's amazing is death can be a community experience. When the people who are alive living, it's not for the dead person. The dead person's busy dying, doing what they're going to do with their body. It's a process that happens. We all will know how to do it. But for the people in the room who are around, it's an opportunity to be like, we just need to be here. We just need to be here. And the best we can do is we'll just be sad, you know, because we'll miss somebody we love, you know. But it's an incredible experience of the truth of something happening, real. But you can't naturally hold your body that way. I couldn't. And this work came. And then when in May, I just made the decision. I heard A. Lewis speak, and I signed up for her courses. She was all ready to go. I was like, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing now. I'll figure it out. But then I gave myself the 9 to 12 months to go through this training. My training was 12 weeks. Everyone's trying to pump you out quickly, you know, and I get that. It's actually an approach they have, which makes sense to kind of change the thing. But then I needed time to process it all and change, you know, because I was completely doing something different. And it was changing my ability to be present and to not talk and to ask questions instead of trying to say what I think or be an expert in the room, which is just a joke when it comes to death, you know. But there are things to do, you know. It's not like we're just like relative and like, oh, la-di-da, let's see. It's a major thing that's happening, and there's steps, but not to be the one who's talking, proving, saying I know, because we don't. I had to give myself time to become that person. And I wanted to be that way in my life, not just my work life. My work life and my life had to become completely integrated now, when before I was completely separate. So I needed the time to do that. And I took it.
That's beautiful. So here is the part of the show where I recap your map. So the first thing that I heard is when you were in the muck, you knew it because you had been pushing and pushing a boulder for so long, and you suddenly realized you couldn't keep pushing the boulder. So really recognizing that moment that all this stuff that worked really well and did serve a purpose for me is no longer serving. So I'm in the muck.
Right.
Second thing I heard is that then you learned to do nothing brilliantly well. So you spent a couple of months doing absolutely nothing.
No plan. Mm-hmm.
You asked for help and learned to build community around you that now sustains and carries you to this day. You learned to change the frenetic pace of yourself so that your whole world could slow down and become more powerful in its forward movement, and to set down roots that could feed you and the work that you were doing. And even though it seems like it slowed down, it actually sped up.
There you go. Yes.
And here we are. You took your own transition, and now you're helping others through their final transition.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do you have any other words of wisdom for us, Monica?
Thank you. That made me teary. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Jenny. I just wanted to say to anybody, if they're feeling it and they feel the same way, similar ways that I felt, like, It's all well, do it, go. Like, you'll be caught. You got to be engaged in it, but there is love and abundance everywhere around us. And we cut ourselves off from it. It's not like it's not there, it's there and we got to go meet it. You have to engage, and I did, to meet it. But it is there. I have too many good things that have happened since then that I was not pushing any bolder. I was like this with hands up, and I was like, okay, whatever. And the most miraculous things happened in my life. The most miraculous. So I cannot be cynical anymore and tell people like, oh, I just can't speak cynically. I said, it's a leap. You got to do the work. It's scary as hell. But if you do the work and engage and like deliberately build your beautiful life, like, it is there for you, and it will surprise you and astonish you. And I am in awe and gratitude and humility at how beautiful life can be when you're in community and you're grounded and you're connected and you're helping. It's breathtaking. So just trust, and all will be well, and get strong and do it. But it's there if you want it.
Thank you so much, Monica, for sharing what happens when you allow things to come to you versus forcing them into existence.
There you go, Jenny.
Thank you.
Exactly.
What a beautiful chat today. Guys, if you want to
darling.
connect to Monica, you can find all of her information in the show notes. I love what you're doing in this world, because the more that we spend time thinking about the end and getting comfortable with it, the more we can enjoy what we have right now. So thank you, Monica.
My darling friend. Thank you. This was beautiful.
Have an amazing day.
You too,
Bye,
darling.
everybody.
Okay. Bye.